Welcome in, Packers fans. As always, thank you for joining me. My name is Paul Brettel. I'm the site editor over at Dairyland Express, where we cover the Packers, Brewers, Bucks, and Badgers. And then Friday over at Cheesehead TV. And as it says below, you can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. So we got another week, I should say, of training camp practices in the books. Family night takes place tonight, Saturday night. So I just want to, before that begins, I want to take a look back at the week that was. I was able to attend Thursday's practice, so I want to cover a couple of items that I saw there, as well as some broader items that came up throughout the week from those who are on the beat around the practice, have more access than what I do. A couple interesting notes that I wanted to touch on as well. So let's kick things off with Jay Sternberger. So at Thursday's practice, he really did have a fantastic day. And overall, it's been I guess I would say, a quieter start to training camp for him. But before I get into his day, I want to begin with the tight end position in general, that transition from college to the NFL. Of course, every move from college to NFL, regardless of position, is going to be difficult. But tight ends in particular can take 2 years or even 3 years before we really see them find their stride. Reason being is because it's a challenging position with a lot of responsibilities. You're expected to know blocking technique and assignments like an offensive tackle. You're expected to run a route tree or have a variety of routes that you can run, similar to like a wide receiver does. So it can be very challenging. Oftentimes we don't see those tight ends, even the more successful ones in football, find success during that rookie year. In fact, it's very, very rare. So for Jay Sternberger, I say give him time. He's someone who came out of Texas A&M, already a very inexperienced and raw prospect. He only had 1 year of starting experience in college at the tight end position. Fast forward to his NFL career, he's battled injuries. He was on the COVID list last year, missed time. He only has 301 career NFL snaps. That's a very, very small sample size for someone who only had 1 year of college experience at the position, and at a position that, as I just highlighted, is very difficult to transition to. So let's take a deep breath. Let's give him a little extra time. And what we saw on Thursday was everything that he can offer. We saw his route running ability, consistently winning one-on-ones. We saw him flash his hands. He was reliable as a pass catcher, even had a one-handed grab. And we saw that wiggle, that elusiveness that he possesses, making plays in the open field, turning a catch in the flat into a big gain. I mean, you saw on display right then and there why Brian Gutekunst drafted him in the 3rd round. Obviously, he has to build upon that performance this season or throughout the rest of practice, throughout the preseason. We need to see it more. We need more consistency. He needs to stay healthy. And when we look at the tight end position here in Green Bay, Robert Tonyan, he's likely going to be the most targeted option. Mercedes Lewis has carved out a role as a blocker, like a 6 offensive tackle. And then Josiah Gore should play a big role as well in that H-back. But the Green Bay Packers, relatively speaking, often run 2 tight end sets compared to the rest of the NFL. So the opportunities are there for Sternberger to earn some playing time. And with hopefully what becomes a strong foundation for 2021, that could lead to more playing time in 2022 because there is uncertainty around the position. We don't know if Robert Tonyan's going to be back. He is an unrestricted free agent. Mercedes Lewis is obviously at the end of his career or closer to the end of his career than the beginning. This may be his last season. And all of a sudden, Green Bay Packers could be short 2 tight ends from what they have now, and they're going to need Sternberger to step up. So this is a big season for him, but keep in mind, inexperienced, raw prospect. He has the talent. He obviously needs to display it more, and we saw that Thursday, so a good sign in that regard. Next up, I want to address the offensive line, a few positions, a few players in particular. First is the guard. It has been a revolving door with the ones. So Ellen Jenkins has primarily been the left tackle. So under the assumption, and it can change, but under the assumption that David Bakhtiari is going to be out to start the season, that leaves 2 guard spots open. And right now, there have been 3 guys rotating with the ones: John Runyon, Lucas Patrick, and Ben Braden. Obviously, Lucas Patrick is the most experienced of the group, and he really had a very sneaky good, under-the-radar 2020 season. Pro Football Focus metrics, ESPN metrics. He ranked very well among guards in the NFL. Ben Braden, he's more of the surprise of the group, I guess you could say, considering that before OTAs and minicamp, at least for me, I won't speak for everyone, but I assume many were in the similar situation. He was not on my radar whatsoever. He has primarily been a practice squad player, but offensive line coach Adam Stenovich said that he expected Braden to compete for starting reps at both guard and tackle. And so far, we've seen that so far. Runyon, he only has about 160 NFL snaps that he took last year. Very small sample size, but he looked well equipped to handle the starting role. I mean, week one, rookie year, injuries happen along the offensive line. He's put in against Minnesota, holds up well, and he held up well for much of the rest of the season. So it's a good problem to have for the Green Bay Packers. As we saw, depth was crucial to their success last season along the offensive line with all the injuries that they had, shuffling guys around, plugging, playing. But still, this offense line overall was very good. So it's a good problem to have. And right now, we should expect to see those three players continuing to rotate in and out of those starting guard spots until hopefully two of them emerge above the rest to make it easy. But very well could be Matt LaFleur is going to have some tough decisions to make. Speaking of Elgton Jenkins, he looked very, very comfortable at left tackle. That shouldn't come as a surprise whatsoever based on just his performance in the NFL at the NFL level, regardless of where you put him. But for someone with only, I think it's 20, 30 career snaps at left tackle in the NFL, you wouldn't know. He's extremely comfortable. He has very good feet, able to work in space. We've seen him pancake guys at the guard position, so we know he has that strength to handle bull rushers. He just looks very, very comfortable there. That selection has been so good and so valuable for Green Bay. Lastly, at the center position, Josh Myers. He, too, has looked incredibly comfortable, especially for a rookie. Aaron Rodgers gave him some really, really high praise at the start of the week, saying that he's been really impressive so far and someone that he expects to play a big role in this team. Matt LaFleur already mentioned that he expects, or the expectation right now, or what they're going with, is that Myers is going to be the starting center come week one. So we expected that to happen. We were hoping that was going to happen. But Larry McCarron gave him some kind words during OTAs and minicamp. Rodgers, LaFleur, it's a tremendous sign for the Green Bay Packers because that is really the one real question mark along the offensive line, which once again, as I highlighted earlier, was very good last year. They can be very good once again this year, and having stability in Josh Myers who can step into that role is going to go a long ways in securing that offensive line not only for 2021 but for the future as well. Next up, Reggie Bagelton. He has been very quiet so far through training camp. We are now 7 practices in, but Thursday, Jordan Love could not resist throwing to him. Whether it was because Bagelton was his first read, whether there's some rapport there that we didn't know about, whatever the reason was, Jordan Love was going his way often. I wish I would have counted how many targets he had, but I feel very comfortable in saying that it was easily over 5. And one of them in particular is on the sidelines. There's a beautiful throw by Love, squeezed it in between 2 defenders. Bagelton made the reception, got both feet in. And it was also a detriment as well because a few plays later, Love really tried to squeeze one in to Bagelton over the middle. It was an ill-advised throw, and it was picked off by Christian Huphoff. But a really nice day overall for Bagelton. Consistently won his one-on-one reps, flashed those hands of his, and really, again, just illustrates how deep this wide receiver room is. We know the starting 5, the roster locks, Adams, MVS, Lazard, Rodgers, and Cobb. We know those are locks. As far as who the 6th receiver is going to be, if Green Bay was going to keep a 6th receiver, it was assumed that was going to be Devin Funchess, Malik Taylor, Equanimeous St. Brown, or Juwan Winfrey. I still wouldn't quite throw Reggie Bagelton into that group. He's going to need several more days like what he had on Thursday. But it's a reminder to just how deep this room is and that Bagelton is still there. He was someone that many fans had their eyes on going into 2020. And this year he's been kind of an afterthought just because of how loaded that room is. But if he can string together a few more days like this, he can potentially secure himself a spot on the practice squad. Once you're on the practice squad, anything can happen. You never know when you're going to be called up. But really what that does is it positions him well for 2022. Currently, Chris Blair and Amari Rodgers are the only receivers under contract for 2022. Blair's not someone that we would necessarily want to count on to play NFL snaps next year. And in all likelihood, Allen Lazard will be back. He's a restricted free agent. We don't know what the future holds for Devontae Adams or Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but there's a very good chance that addressing the receiver position is going to be high on the Green Bay Packers to-do list next offseason. And if Bagelton can make the practice squad, be in those practices. He'll set himself up in 2022 to potentially make the 53-man roster with a good showing, of course, and play a much bigger role. So he's someone to keep our eyes on. I know he's gotten lost in the receiver shuffle, but being there, seeing him in action, it was really, really an impressive day for him. Another position that many fans were focused on heading into training camp is a slot cornerback, the star position. There's a number of guys competing for that spot. Jerry Gray told us during minicamp that there was a handful of them, and their goal was to narrow it down to one or two. Well, according to Larry McCarron of Packers.com, at least through the first week, that primary slot cornerback has been Chandon Sullivan. And at least to me, that's not a surprise. Whether, I don't know if I said it in these videos, but I know I've written about it. My expectation for the star position is that if we fast forward to the end of the season, Chandon Sullivan will have taken the most snaps there. However, I think his snap count in the slot from a year ago is going to be reduced because we're going to see more of Darnell Savage. We're going to see more of Jair Alexander there. And that leads me to another point. At Thursday's practice, I saw Jair Alexander lined up in the slot a couple times with the ones. And I think that if we go off of what Jalen Ramsey did for the Rams in 2020 in that Brandon Staley defense, his snap count in the slot went from 60 or 70 in 2019 to almost 200 last year. There was him just traveling with the opponent's top receiver that brought him there naturally. I think Jair is going to do that as well. There was also just Brandon Staley lining up Jalen Ramsey in the slot because he's a really, really good defender, and muddying things up over the middle makes things more difficult for the opposing offense, the opposing quarterback. I, too, could see Jair Alexander filling that role as well. Darnell Savage, he was just very, very good from the slot last year. We've seen over his short NFL career, the closer you can get that man to the line of scrimmage, the more plays he's going to make. So I see those two taking an uptick in their slot snaps this year. But overall, I'm not surprised whatsoever that Chandon Sullivan, early on at least, has emerged as what appears to be the favorite for those starting reps. This should have been expected. I know in the playoffs last year, against Goff and Brady, he was picked on. I believe he was targeted 11 times over those two games, had a rough start to the NFC Championship game. But to his credit, he did bounce back in that second half. And really, if we look at his overall numbers from Pro Football Focus, particularly in the slot, he actually fared pretty well compared to the rest of the slot corners around the NFL. He was top 10 in snaps per target and top 10 in snaps per reception. He was solid. Not great by any means. Nothing too flashy or spectacular, but solid. Next up, the linebacker position. Devondre Campbell and Chris Barnes have been the ones. They've been the starting linebackers throughout training camp so far, and really that shouldn't come as a surprise. Chris Barnes wore the green dot last year. He's just a super steady player. His ceiling may not be as high as someone like Kamal Martin's, but he is just incredibly steady against both the run and the pass. Devondre Campbell provides a veteran presence, and again, just an all-around good player. There's no parts of his game that are really going to flash or make you say, wow, but against the run, against the pass, as a blitzer, he's solid. He's well-rounded, and he just brings that stability as a three-down linebacker. With the second team has been Ty Summers and Oren Burks. Ty Summers he's making a move is a bit too strong, but he's been solid. And he's someone that on my initial 53-man roster prediction, which I did on here, that I left off. However, earlier this week, and I do plan to put out a video in the coming days on this, I did a revision. One, because there's been some roster turnover since I did the first one. And two, we got 7-8 practices under our belt to see these guys. So I want to make some revisions, and I'm sure I'll do it again before the final one comes due. But the second time around, I put him on the 53-man roster. We know about his special teams ability, but on the defensive side of the ball, he's been solid as well. Obviously not someone that you want as your starter or even your backup, but as a third or fourth option, I definitely feel more comfortable seeing him in action. Oren Burks, it's now or never, similarly to Josh Jackson, and he's been very, very quiet. Even in Thursday's practice, I saw Josh Jackson have a couple nice pass breakups against Al Nazard in one-on-ones. Burks has just been very, very quiet, and there's still time, there's practices, there's preseason, but it just feels like the writing is on the wall for him. And then Kamal Martin, he was injured this week, and Matt LaFleur even acknowledged that the Green Bay Packers have been trying him out at edge rusher. The Green Bay Packers are short on edge rushers right now. Zadarius Smith is still on the non-football injury list. Randy Ramsey left Tuesday's practice, I believe it was, and according to Matt LaFleur, it sounds like a very significant injury. So they're just short. But I also wonder if this is an attempt just to get Kamal Martin on the field. We saw Oren Burks take some snaps at edge rusher last season, but that, of course, had a very different feeling. That felt as if we need to find something. We need something to work. This is a last ditch effort. Let's just give it a go. With Martin, we've seen the flash, the explosiveness, the speed, the playmaking ability. Perhaps this is just an avenue to try to get him on the field with Campbell and Chris Barnes taking a bulk of the defensive snaps. A couple more now before we wrap up. Next is Eric Stokes. He has, to put it simply, taken his lumps during this training camp. There's been some highs, there's been some very nice plays, but there's been a lot of downs as well. It's clear Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, they're going at the rookie, and they are going at him. And of course, it's very much a welcome to the NFL type of moment. But Aaron Rodgers put his arm around Eric Stokes, and Stokes told the media that it was Rodgers telling him that I'm here to make you better every single day. Rodgers knows that they're going to rely on Stokes this season. The defensive side of the ball is. So he wants to prepare him as much as possible. They're going at him. And really, that's the best way to learn, trial by fire. It's a steep learning curve, but they may also shorten the learning curve as well. And not to say that Stokes is going to have the same career trajectory as what Jair Alexander has, but Jair Alexander has gone up against Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams in practice since his rookie year as well. It's certainly benefited him. Hopefully we see the same for Eric Stokes. Along the interior defensive line, as what should be expected, the primary starters are Kenny Clark, Dean Lowry, and Tyler Lancaster so far. Like I said, I don't know what else would be expected. Kingsley Keke, when he comes back, he's on the non-football injury list. He will take Tyler Lancaster's spot. TJ Slayton, he's had a nice debut for a fifth-round rookie, but he's still a fifth-round rookie. He's not someone that, at least at this point, a week and a half in a training camp, that I expect to crack the starting lineup. So Lancaster, Lowry, Clark pretty much should be what we expect. Last note for this episode, Josiah Gore is back. He is going to be a huge addition to this offense. I know when he was drafted last year, there were the head scratches. Why would you take an H-back in the third round? But he is tailor-made for this Matt LaFleur offense. And what he did week 1 against Minnesota last year prior to his injury was just on full display what he's going to offer. He lined up in the backfield, in line, in the slot, had some passing plays designed for him, had a couple of key blocks on some runs. That's what he's going to add to this offense. And really, it was a missing element last year. They didn't have that specific H-back role. So it's there's going to be new plays that can be unlocked. And I'm really, really excited to see how LaFleur uses him, how he integrates him over the course of the season. So he was back at practice this week. They're easing him into it. He wasn't in any of the team drills. We did some tackling drills and things like that. So that's my wrap up for this week. Family night is tonight. Be sure to tune in however you can. Make sure to enjoy it. And as I have been, I'll be putting out an article right after with my takeaways, thoughts, observations from what we saw. So as always, take care, everyone. As always, you can find my work at Dairyland Express and Cheesehead TV. And you can find me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. Take care, stay safe, and go Pack Go.